All right, so 3D design, we are going to be doing models using a program called Blender. This is 2.69 that I'm using. You may have something that's fairly close to that, and the interface should be relatively similar. It may end up moving things in different spots, but it should be the same basic idea. Looking at the scene, this is what Blender looks like when you first open it up. There's a cube with some colored arrows coming out of it. There's this little circle. There's this red and white dash circle in the middle, and there's this kind of cone, which is the camera. This is the main 3D view. The way that it works is that you've got useful things down here which allow you to alter things within your 3D view. It has some things that you might want to do, like scale things, translate them. This has your whole scene, and this has properties of things within your scene. So first of all, what do we do here? So with a 3D view, obviously you're looking at a two-dimensional screen, so how do you manipulate the view so you can look at different sides of an object? For this project, we actually need a 3-button mouse, and the third button is actually the mouse wheel. If you hold down the mouse wheel and move your cursor left and right, up and down, you can rotate the view and look at it from different angles. If you scroll up or down, you scale in or out, looking at that particular scene. And then if you need to move the screen to the side, you hold down Shift and the middle mouse button and move from one side to another. So when we're looking at the scene, the reason for these different arrows is they're representing the different axes within your scene. So you're probably used to X and Y, which is the red and the yellow. But since we're making three-dimensional objects, we need a third axis, which is the Z axis, the up and down one in this case. So it also has a little representation of that down here on the lower left. So if I scroll around, notice the axes change to give you that representation. All right, so that's what you need to know for moving around. There's a couple of things you also need to know about for some shortcuts that are useful. So hopefully you have a keypad attached, which is the numbers situated like a calculator. Usually it's on the right side of your keyboard. Make sure the number lock is on, so you're actually using the numbers themselves, not the symbols underneath. If I hit 7, it shows me the top-down view. So I'm looking at directly the X and Y axis. 1 shows me from the side, and 3 shows me the front view. So you can use these to kind of quickly change. Now, one other thing to keep in mind is that if I'm looking at this, I'm in perspective mode right now. So if you look up here in the upper left, it says user that stands for perspective. This means that notice these lines are going to the horizon. Like there's this imaginary point on the horizon that they're all merging towards. It gives the illusion of depth. So this line back here actually looks shorter than this front line up here. There are times when you want to not have that happen, when you're trying to see if 2 points are actually parallel to each other. And so what you'll want to do is switch to orthogonal mode, which is the number pads 5. So now notice all lines are parallel instead of the perspective view where they all merge to the center. There are times when using orthographic is actually better for manipulating your points. And you just use 5 to toggle back and forth between that. 4 and 6 allow you to take steps in one direction, and 8 and 2 as well. All right, so now that we know how to look around a scene, how do we manipulate something that's in a scene? At the moment, I'm in something called object mode. If you notice down here, it says object mode. It's a pattern. If you click on, with the left mouse button, one of these arrows here, notice that you can move an object around this way. So I can move in the different directions. This is called translation. You're moving an object within the scene, but you're not changing its shape in any way. You're just moving it to a different spot within the scene. So down here towards the bottom, transformation is what this arrow is. If I click over to the next one, this is rotation. So if I need to alter the angle that this thing is at, I can do that here. So that allows you to manipulate how an object is positioned in the 3D space. The final thing you might want to do is scaling, which is this guy here. So if I want to scale in a particular direction, I can do that. So you can scale in a bunch of different ways. And that allows you to alter the size of the object you're dealing with. So those are your 3 things that you can do in order to manipulate a shape. You can scale it in different directions, rotate it, translate it. Now after a while, you're going to be like, this is still just a cube. This is really boring. And I would like to do some more things with this. For example, it'd be neat if I could take this corner here and move it around. So once you do that, you're going to be going into something called edit mode. So I'm going to switch now to edit mode, which is this thing here. By the way, the other way you can do it is if you hit tab, it'll toggle back and forth between object and edit mode. So now if you look at the shape, you may notice that now you have these little dots on the corners. There's these lines in between, and then there's these big flat pieces in the middle. These dots on the ends are called vertices, or a single one is called a vertex. They're connected by something called an edge. That's the line that connects two points. And then the part that's filled in between these things is called a face. And you can actually manipulate different parts of an object by selecting different parts of these. So another key press you probably want to know is A. A is select and deselect all. So if I hit A a few times, notice it's selected points. And now we're going to get to the third mouse button, the right mouse button. So if I right-click on this point over here, that selects it. If I right-click over here, it selects a different one. So I can manipulate this one particular point. Okay? And then another thing that I can do is I can select multiple points. So if I hold down Shift and right-click, I can select multiple points all at once. And if you click again while holding down Shift, you can deselect as well. So now I can grab all three of those points at the same time. Now, it may be that you don't want to manipulate particular points. What you want to do instead is just grab one of these edges, one of these lines. So down here, there's vertex select. The next one over is edge select. So now if I go select this edge, I can manipulate just that edge and everything touching it. And then the final thing is face select, which is this one here. So I can just right-click to select a face and do something with that. Now, another thing that might be useful to know is, okay, these are the individual points, which is nice, but what if I want to do something with this? So there's a couple things you can do. One of them is over here called subdivide. So if I click subdivide over here on the side, notice that it's actually divides it into multiple pieces. And if you want to do different numbers of cuts, that's once you subdivide once, you can do multiple times. So you can divide up the faces into more things, and this also puts in vertices. So notice there's a center point here. Another thing you can do is you can extrude. So if I take this thing and extrude it, which is also the E key, so if I type E, notice that it pulls out a new block, like it makes a new one out of that face, filling in the corresponding faces. Kind of neat, huh? What about if I want to get rid of a face? So let's say that I want to get rid of this one here. What you do is you hit the delete key, and it asks you which things you wanted to remove. In my case, I want to remove the face that I have there. And notice now there's a hole in my object. If you ever want to put things back, you go back to vertex select. If you select 2 points and hit F for face, it'll actually put in an edge. If you select 3 or 4 points and you hit F, it'll fill in a face. So you can use this to actually fill in holes in your models as well. So that's the basics of manipulating 3D objects. Using these basic tools, you'll be able to create pretty much any shape you want.